Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having an extraordinary Saturday. It is Juneteenth. If you're not familiar with what that is, it was just made a national holiday this week. Learn more about it. It is important in terms of our history. So I hope that you're taking an opportunity not just to have a happy Juneteenth, but to actually learn about what Juneteenth is about and maybe come up with some new traditions and practices that you put in place as a result of what you learned. So I wanted to go live today, this Saturday morning. It's a gorgeous day here in Atlanta, Georgia, just to talk a little bit more about me. I know that often I come and I share tips, but I thought today would be a great opportunity to share my experience with you, actually having left a very successful corporate career to move out and do entrepreneurial ventures. I know there are many of us that at some point in our career or are currently contemplating, hey, should I make the leap? And so I wanted to talk today about how do you know if it's time for you to make the leap? And if you're contemplating the leap, what are 8 questions that you should be asking yourself before you make the decision to leave your job? Listen, y'all, I had a great job. I had a 6-figure job. I had the title. I was an executive, had great benefits and bonuses, and took trips to nice locations on the company's dime. I had a great job by all intents and purposes, but yet and still knowing that I had all those great things going for me, December 31st, 2016, I decided I wanted to start 2017 off fresh with a new start, and I left my corporate job. I realized that my time there had come to an end, and I know that many of us either are currently or may have been or maybe will be contemplating a corporate leap at some point. And so I kind of was thinking about when you get to the point and you're like, should I stay or should I go? It made me think of that show on HGTV called Love It or List It, where they have this family that's there and they're trying to decide, hey, do I stay in this house that I'm living in, or do I just chuck it and move on to a new house that has everything that I want? And they bring in these experts that come in and help them evaluate whether it makes sense for them to stay in that old house and just make modifications to it so that the house is in a better fit for them, or does it make sense for them to just leave that house, sell it, and buy a new house? And sometimes we're trying to decide whether we should leave our job or not. It's kind of like an episode of Love It or Leave It, right? Can you make modifications to your current job that makes it a better fit for you? Or is it time to just leave it behind and start over fresh somewhere else? Listen, I am always telling my coaching clients, you cannot address what you do not first assess. So before you make any major decision, my first recommendation to you is always going to be, do an assessment, a full kind of diagnostic autopsy of your reasons why and lots of different elements that can help you be better informed so that you can address the real issue. Because sometimes we make decisions thinking that it's going to be the right answer and then later find out, not sure that was really the answer or the best way to solve the issue that I was having. So if you are looking to maybe make that leap, here are 8 questions that you should ask yourself. And I encourage you to stay to the end, because at the end, I am going to make a resource available to you that I think will help you if you are considering whether you should make that leap. First question you got to ask yourself is, what is the end goal here? You got to start at the end and kind of work backwards. What is your end career vision? What do you ultimately want to be known for, at the end of your career? And that career may be 10 years or 15 years, but at the end, what do you see yourself being known for? What would that ideal career look like for you? And then you got to kind of reel it in a little bit and say, all right, based on where I ultimately want to be at the end of my career, what kind of progress can I make towards that within a 12-month period? What would that vision for my career look like for me in the next 12 months? Listen, what skills do you need to get there? And will this job ultimately help you get to your 12-month vision and ultimately your end of career vision, right? So for me, I knew that the job that I had, it did help me get immeasurable skills that I could ultimately transfer to my entrepreneurial ventures, which is what I knew I ultimately wanted to do. But you got to map out what are the skills you're gaining, what are the skills you have the potential to gain, and what would be required for you to get those skills. Sometimes it means you might have to move into a new role or a different division or department. So start with your vision and work backwards. Write that vision down, 12 months and end of career, and then work backwards. What would you need to do in the next 12 months to advance you closer to your end of career vision? The second question you got to ask yourself is going to require some honesty on your part. You got to ask yourself, is your decision to leave a pattern or truly a pivot? Sometimes, y'all, we don't realize that we might have a pattern of jumping ship when things get hard. So you got to look back at your last 2 to 3 jobs and see if there are any common themes related to your decision to leave. Listen, you got to look at you and say, what do I need to do differently? What did I need to do differently? How did you contribute to your need to ultimately have to leave the last job? And is that reappearing now in your decision to leave the current job? Were you often getting into it with your boss or your subordinates? Listen, you got to be honest. Do you have a pattern of leaving when things get hard? Or is this really a pivot where you recognize that priority-wise and goal-wise, that this position is no longer a good fit for you? So you got to ask yourself, pattern or pivot? Second question you got to ask yourself, third question, you got to ask yourself, at what salary would you stay in this position? Often money is not enough, but because I've stayed in positions that had lower pay because they better align with my priorities. But you got to ask yourself, at what salary would you stay? If the leap, right? If the gap between the salary that you would need to stay and where you are now is, let's just say, over 25%, that's probably a sign that you might not be able to get what it is you need in terms of salary gap where you are. But if the amount that would make you stay in that position is 25% or less, you might need to have a conversation with HR and your boss to ask them, hey, is there room for me to get closer to that 25% or whatever that number is that you feel like you would need to stay in this position? And if the gap is too big, it just may be time for you to go, but you need to evaluate that first. Then you got to I think fourth, ask yourself, who would this job be right for? What kind of person would be great in that position? Now, if the answer is nobody, that may be a sign that it's time to go. But if you could actually sit down and say, you know what, this may or may not be a good position may not be a good fit for me, but here are the qualifications, here are the characteristics that a person that is the right fit for this position would be. And then measure that against what you bring to the table to figure out if there really is a fundamental reason why you're leaving again. Fifth, you got to ask yourself, what are your top 3 to 5 priorities for your life? And how is this job impacting them? The problem is many of us do not know what's really most important for us in our lives. But there may be a foundational priority misalignment that's going on with your job. And so you really got to dig deep and try to figure out what is most important for me as it relates to my life, my overall life. And is this job negatively impacting those top 3 to 5 priorities that I have set for my life? Now, if this job is negatively impacting your priorities, that doesn't automatically mean it's time for you to leave. It may mean that you need to sit down with your boss and HR again and ask if there's an opportunity to make some negotiations, adjustments, or revisions to your current role that would lessen the negative impact to your top 3 to 5 priorities. And if you realize that this job is negatively impacting, let's just say my mental health or my marriage or my relationship with my kids, and there isn't anything that you can do to modify the position to help lessen that impact, it may be time for you to consider, it might be time for you to go. Now, number 6, you got to ask yourself and get really clear about why are you leaving. Now, I know for most people, you're saying, listen, the question is obvious, right? I want my freedom. I want to be my own boss. But honestly, y'all, you can know the what. The what is that you want to leave. But if you don't know the true whys, then you probably may be leaving for the wrong reason. Now, listen to this. When you're talking about the whys of why you're leaving, you got to understand that there are levels to your whys. Many times I find that when people want to leave their job, they are starting with their top level why, right? I'm not feeling this job anymore. It doesn't get me going in the morning. I'm just not feeling it. Y'all, I want you to know that that is a whipped cream why. What do I mean by a whipped cream why? That is a top level why. And when you are evaluating why you're leaving your position, you got to go beyond the frosting. You got to get below the whipped cream. If you're looking at it in terms of an apple pie, you got to get down to the bottom, the apple pie and the crust, right? Because that's where your answers are really going to be. And it can't just be, I want to be my own boss, or this job, I feel like this job is not working out for me. So how do you get to your bottom level why of why you want to leave and get from that surface kind of whipped cream level why? You got to put yourself in a position like you're a second grader. If you have ever hung out with a second grader has an endless number of whys. Auntie, you tell your second grader, you say, hey, we're going to go to the park. Why? Well, because I want to get outside. Why? Well, because I'm feeling kind of blue and I want to increase my vitamin D. Why? Well, this research says that when you go outside and you get vitamin D, it helps to increase your mood. Why? Well, because of the way the brain works, you got to get down to the crust of your whys. Your feelings are top level, okay? So you can start with your feeling. I'm not feeling this job anymore. But then you got to get below that to the root. Keep asking why. Why did you get to this point where you're like, now I want this, you could take this job and shove it, right? So your first top level why may be, I'm not feeling it. I feel like I'm not excited about this job. Then you got to ask yourself, why am I no longer excited about this job? And that answer may be, I'm not using my skills that I was trained to use. This is not within my passion. And if the answer is it's not within my skills, then you got to say, why is it not within my skills? Well, I wasn't trained for this, or the job doesn't offer opportunities for growth. You see where I'm going. You want to get to that crust level why. Now, seventh question, after you get under the whys and get to the root of why you're really leaving, you got to ask yourself, why did you accept this job in the beginning? Because like any relationship, there's always a honeymoon. There was a reason you came to this job. So you got to get clear about why you came in the beginning and try to figure out, has something substantially changed? If the reasons why you came to the job are the same reasons why you're staying at the job, if those reasons why you came are still valid for you, then you may need to stay. But if the reasons why you came have changed, then you need to evaluate that and figure out where that gap is, so that as you move to the next position, you have clear reasons on what you're looking for in the next position. All right, last but not least is number 8, is you got to ask yourself, is it the people or is it the position? Because sometimes you could be in a department with people that are just not a good fit for you. They may be toxic. It could be your boss. It could be your coworkers. But you could also be, and it could be a company-wide pervasive culture thing. But you could just be in a department that has a negative or an unhealthy culture. And you could maybe find a better department that is a better fit. So these are the 8 questions, y'all, that you want to ask yourself before you make the leap. Just as a recap, you want to ask yourself and have a vision for, what is the end goal here? What do you want to be known for at the end of your career? What is your vision for the next 12 months for your career? And how does this position help you get there? What can you do to help you get closer to that end of career and 12-month vision for your career? You got to ask yourself, is this a pattern or is this a pivot? Do you have a pattern of leaving jobs when they get hard? Do you have a pattern of having poor relationships with your coworkers? If this is a pattern, you need to deal with the pattern, not just pivot, because your pivot will not solve your pattern. Third, you got to ask yourself, at what salary would you stay? Is there enough money for you to stay? If that number is, let's just say 25%, the gap between where you are and the money that would make you stay, maybe you need to go back and renegotiate with your HR and renegotiate with your boss to see if you can get closer to that 25% or at least come up with a path to get you closer to that 25%. Now, if the amount of money it's going to take for you to stay is pretty big, that may be a sign that you need to consider another possibility, another opportunity. Ask yourself, who would this job be? Who would this job be? Who would the right person be for this job? What kind of person would be great in this position? If the answer is nobody, might be time to consider something else. But if you can put together, if you had to put together what the ideal person for this job would look like, then measure that against you. How do you compare to the ideal person that fits for this job? Fifth, ask yourself, how does this job impact your top 3 to 5 priorities? Sit down and write out what your priorities are in life, y'all, because a lot of times it's not just money. You have other areas that are important to you. And if this job is negatively impacting your priorities, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to leave, but it could mean that you need to have a conversation with your boss, with HR, that talks about, hey, can we make these adjustments so that this job does not impact my top priorities so negatively? 6, ask yourself why you're leaving. Remember, there are layers to your why. Your first why that you're leaving is typically not the best reason to leave. You want to get all the way down to the crust of that pie, asking yourself, okay, I'm not feeling this job anymore. Why am I not feeling this job anymore? And continue to ask yourself why until you can't really ask any more why questions. That's going to often lead you to your true why of why you're leaving. 7, why'd you accept this job in the beginning? Get to the root of why. Why did you come here at all? Why did you even start this relationship? Has anything changed? Acknowledge that and write it down. And last but not least, you got to ask yourself, is it the people or is it the position? Y'all, it's been great talking to you. I have a worksheet. If you are considering making a leap from your job to something else or leaving the workforce altogether, I have a worksheet that can help you outline some of these questions and get more clarity about, is this the right time? Is it the right move? Is it time for you to leave that career that you're in? Y'all, I'm Nyjah Drakes. I am your clarity and purpose coach. I'm so happy and honored that you joined me this morning. If you found any of what I said today useful, I ask you to do one of 3 things: like, comment, share, like, comment, share. If you know someone who is considering whether they should leave their corporate job or not, share this video with them, tag them in this post, because that's how people find us. And we believe that the information we share will help women spark their flame so that they can blaze their uniquely divine trail. And I hope that you enjoyed today's session. I hope you have an awesome weekend and happy Juneteenth. Get to the root of why we're celebrating Juneteenth. Know why you're celebrating it as well. But have a great weekend. Y'all take care.